This is being done in your name. A massacre, a bloodbath, a war crime on a biblical scale is currently underway in Gaza. Now, I went on TV earlier, doing my best to challenge the absolutely outrageous media coverage, with courageous exceptions, of this calamity. But before I share that clip, a few more comments. This is what's important. It's your government arming and backing Israel as it unleashes this war crime. The Israeli state has ordered the civilian population of northern Gaza to leave their homes, all 1.1 million of them. Now, the UN has declared that this will lead to devastating humanitarian consequences and called for that order to be reversed. The Norwegian Refugee Council has declared it would amount to the war crime of forcible transfer, demanding it be reversed. The Director General of the World Health Organization has said that decision to order an evacuation is asking vulnerable patients to evacuate hospitals in Gaza, and that amounted to a death sentence, demanding it be reversed. The truth is, hundreds of thousands of those civilians cannot leave. It's impossible to do so. This is a war zone, not least those who are desperately ill, injured. The Gaza Health Ministry said it's impossible to evacuate the wounded to the south. There are no extra beds in any hospitals anywhere for people to move to. Most of the wounded are unstable. They die en route. All the hospitals in Gaza, even after they've been expanded, are full. It was already a war crime to cut off food, water and electricity to a Gaza which, remember, has been under blockade from land, air and sea for 15 years, reducing it to the world's largest open-air prison. As you listen to this, entire neighbourhoods have been wiped out. The head of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees has said Gaza is being turned into a hellhole. The mentality of the Israeli state here should not be in doubt. Their president, Isaac Herzog, has directly made it clear that the official position of the Israeli state is one of collective punishment. He said it is an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true, this rhetoric about civilians not being aware, not involved, is absolutely not true. They could have risen up, they could have fought against that evil regime which took over Gaza in a coup d'etat. Have no doubt. That's the sort of mentality which historically has led to genocide. Now, what we are witnessing is a human catastrophe, one created by the Israeli state, armed and backed by Britain and the United States. But much of our media is not telling the truth about the brutal reality of what's happening in Gaza. Earlier, I went on the Jeremy Vine show to make this point, and about how Palestinians are being stripped of their humanity by the media and politicians.
The British government's helping the humanitarian crisis in the first place happen because it's supporting what is a war crime. And that's what we should be talking about. It's a war crime being committed with the support of the British government. This military contribution, by the way, is completely tokenistic. If anyone thinks it's going to do anything worthwhile, it won't. And I don't understand the framing of prevent all-out war in the region. It won't do any such thing, clearly. What it does show is that the British government will stand behind the Israeli state whilst it commits a war crime. Now, what's happening at the moment is collective punishment, which is illegal under international law. We were all horrified by the atrocities committed by Hamas against innocent civilians in Israel. What is now happening is illegal under the Geneva Convention. You cannot cut off...
OK, let's just go back to these ships, though, because what we have there is a hospital ship.
There's not...
And certainly from the way that I...
But the reason I'm frustrated about talking about that is...
That we witnessed the military...
there's nothing...
Medics, they didn't regard which side people came from. They treated them. And if we are about to see a humanitarian crisis on an increased scale, then that ship could be there to help out, Owen.
This is too tokenistic a contribution to be worth commenting on. All it shows, the only significance of this, is that it shows the British government will unequivocally, unconditionally back Israel while it cuts off water, food and electricity, while it drops white phosphorus. People should Google white phosphorus. What it does is like raining fire on civilians. It sticks to your skin and burns it off. It's a war crime to use that against the civilian population. The British government's position is that it will support collective punishment against a population which is the size of Gaza of East London. It has 2.2 million people. 80% of them rely on international humanitarian assistance. 50% of them are children. 50% of children. They are hungry, desperate kids. They did not kill those people, those poor, innocent people in Israel. And the position of Britain is that the hundreds of Palestinian kids who have already died, more will be killed, as well as medics who are dying, as well as UN officials, journalists, the whole works.
I think we need some balance here. We genuinely need a bit of balance here. I was talking to a Jewish friend this morning who lives in London, and said that her daughter, who's Jewish, is in Paris, is not going out because she's so fearful. You've got WhatsApp groups in the Jewish community saying to people, you don't go out because they're really worried about anti-Semitic attacks in the UK, all over the world. So there's an if you were Jewish, I think you would feel different. I think you'd feel very afraid. I think the shock and the as you always said, the horrific nature of the attacks that happened to completely innocent Jews, and calling civilians is a kind of very, it's euphemistic. These were families. These were mothers and fathers and children. And the way they were killed, and the fact that it was absolutely unashamedly, we weren't even trying to get a military target. We will just go and kill people in a terrible, terrible way. So I understand.
I want to.
I really have to.
I don't think.
I really want to focus on our subject,
yes,
which is about
completely
the purpose
tokenistic
of these ships.
Right.
Now,
I agree it's tokenistic.
just so we're clear,
Yeah.
but just so we're clear, what they're aiming to do is patrol to prevent arms making their way to Hamas.
Can I answer why I just think I'm frustrated about it in terms of
the
why my response is somehow not acceptable? Because I'm saying that the significance of what Britain is doing is through this tokenistic gesture. It's showing that it supports what Israel is doing. And just on... No, I have to respond very quickly to that. You're absolutely right. Anti-Semitic incidents always go up during these flares of violence. That's always true. And every attempt to blame Jewish people for what's happening, committed by Israel, is anti-Semitism. What is also happening, it always happens at the same time, is you get an increase in anti-Muslim hate crimes. And they are being spiking in Britain and elsewhere as well. But the point I would just make very politely to you is, you talked about the fear people have, Jewish people here and in France and elsewhere. The fear of people in Palestine now is based on the fact they are being bombed. They are having white phosphorus dropped on them.
Yes.
And the reason I'm frustrated
and
is
Palestinian
Hamas
caused
those Palestinian children didn't do that.
No, of course
and they're paying. And Palestinian children are of equal worth, their lives,
I think that
to that of an Israeli child.
But I think
and
also,
people aren't saying that in the media. Palestinian people are being treated as less than human.
Again, this support,
this
support that's been offered, that's on its way.
What do you want us to say about this? I'm genuinely curious. I don't understand what the point
I'm just saying, if you look at the purpose of these two ships, what they're there to do, one is to prevent arms making their way to Hamas. That's a good thing.
They're not going to do that. It's a tokenistic
And the other is to provide hospital assistance. Now, presumably, that's for whoever needs it, regardless of which side they're from. Well, that is aiding in what could be a catastrophic humanitarian crisis.
Which Britain could stop by taking a stand against collective punishment, which is killing innocent people.
Cannot stop that. I mean, my fear when I heard that we were sending this task force was, oh my goodness, we're not getting involved in another war, are we? You know, surely we have learned that when we step into the Middle East, no good thing ever happens there. And I think we've already got Ukraine that we're involved in, and now we're going to be involved in this. It's just like I feel like as a country, we've got so many problems here, and yet again, we're getting, whether it's tokenistic, which I think it largely is, here we are getting involved.
You just made a great point. Lowy just made an excellent point there, which is every single one of these military interventions has been a disaster. You're right. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, we could go on. But that's also true with Gaza. Every single Israeli onslaught on Gaza killed huge numbers of innocent civilians, and it did not stop Hamas, and you also had Israeli soldiers dying, not anywhere compared to the number of Palestinians. And again, in the last 15 years, before this hideous atrocity which Hamas committed, 96% of the deaths were Palestinian. 96% of the injuries were Palestinian. And we've got to start treating Palestinians as human beings, because in this discussion in the media at the moment, people are not treating Palestinians as human beings, and that has to stop.
I just want to end by saying this. I've worked in the media now for 12 years, and I've never been so disgusted with this industry. Never so disgusted. With commendable exceptions, there is not even the pretense that Palestinian civilian life is of equal life to that of an Israeli or Western civilian life. That is gratuitous, unapologetic racism, and it should be described as such when someone, because of their racialized characteristics, their life is treated as of being less worth than you. It is vitally important, of course, to hold our governments to account for this ongoing massacre and, for example, in Britain, the failure of the opposition to hold the government to account. But it's also important to hold media outlets and commentators to account. They are helping to build consent for this atrocity. Some of them, their rhetoric is nothing short of nauseating, whipping up in the most kind of bloodlust way support for this mass murder. Now, everything that happens from now on is in part on them. In the coming bloodshed, some of those who cheered on this war crime will start to express regrets. We didn't mean this. This isn't what we wanted. That's what they'll say. Don't let them get away with it. Don't let them get away with it. What happens next is obvious. It's obvious to us all. They cannot look back and say that what is about to happen is something they could never have predicted it. We know what's going to happen, and they should not and cannot be absolved of their own responsibility. Please like, subscribe. Do keep the channel on the road on patreon.com/ownjoes84. I'll see you soon.